Hello, I'm Dr. Janice K. Neal Vincent, oral historian for Scott Ford House Incorporated and W.K. Kellogg team. Today's date is Friday, May the 7th, 2021. I'm accommodated in this video recording by Miss Edna Harris, the videographer. I would like at this time for our interviewee, and we are so happy to have her present with us at this moment, to please give us her name.
I'm Rosa Herns King.
And Ms. King, I have a series of questions pertaining to your knowledge of the granny midwives here in Mississippi. Of course, we say that they were granny because they are long ago gone from us. But when they were here, they did so many significant things. And I would like to know if you would allow me to interview you.
Yes, ma'am. I'll help you any way I can.
Thank you very much. Like I said, I have a series of questions. First of all, what I want to know from you is, what was the time period when you knew of a granny midwife who worked with you and or your relatives? Specifically, with whom did she work?
I never worked with a granny midwife, but my great-grandmother was a midwife, and I first became aware of what she did probably when I was about 6. I don't know a lot about her practice. I just remember her as a great-grandmother.
Okay. What made her so great to you?
She could do everything.
Such as?
She was proficient at needlecraft. She could can and fish and make good cheese sandwiches with gingerbread cookies. She loved flowers. She showed us how to set out zinnias and how to crop her chrysanthemums. I learned about chrysanthemums later, but she just called them mums. Mm-hmm. But I learned later that mums were referring to some other plant. But she was my kindergarten teacher, so to speak. She was kindergarten because in my day, there was no such thing for us. She told me my first Bible stories. I especially loved to hear her talk about Joseph, especially the story about the coat of many colors, and some nursery rhymes that most students learn about when they are kindergarten. I learned them from my great-grandmother, and she insisted on our reciting them. It was funny to us the way she told a story about Humpty Dumpty, and she was dramatic. When I first heard of Little Miss Muffet, it was from my great-grandmother. I first heard of Hansel and Gretel from my great-grandmother.
Okay. And
since she was born in 1859, and the Emancipation Proclamation wasn't until 1862, that made her 3 years old when that proclamation was issued. I don't know how she learned to read and write so well and to know all of that. I just don't know. Because slavery was still rampant and practiced then, especially when she was 3 years old. So how did she learn all about Hansel and Gretel and all the she was proficient at it.
Mhm.
She was the person who got me my first thimble that actually fit my new finger
Okay.
at 6. And she made us keep our ribbons nicely ironed on iron that was heated on the stove, or some little charcoal thing that mamas use to heat the straightening combs,
Okay.
to warm comb your hair.
Mhm.
I learned all about that and how to hold the curlers, how to hold a straightening comb. Madam C.J. Walker had nothing on my great grandmother.
Okay. This is very interesting. Did she tell you the story behind the straightening comb for your hair?
No, except I remember her saying, "Be careful when you get in the kitchen, the part that was on the back of the neck for your neck, so you won't burn yourself."
Okay.
And we had to hold our ears to keep the straightening comb from touching our ears.
Okay.
But she was very diligent about our hair. She washed our hair every week, and she parted it and put Blue Seal Vaseline in the parts. Our hair was washed with coconut oil shampoo. I think it was Raleigh's coconut oil shampoo. And she would insist on our brushing our hair 300 strokes.
How many?
300.
Why was that?
I don't know. But we had to stroke our hair, brush our hair. She was religious about it. And we sat between her big knees. My great-grandmother had big knees, big legs, big hips. I remember that.
Okay.
In direct contrast to the way mine subsequently became. I remember hearing her talk about attending somebody who was expecting, the way she put it, who was in family way, with my mom or some of my aunts. She was not talking to us children. We weren't supposed to be hearing. But I recall that she would go and stay with the family, especially if the mother was having trouble with her pregnancy. And she recommended that the mother stay off her feet. She would stay with that mother so that she could rest as much as possible. And she would do the things in the family that the mother couldn't do. Wash and iron and can food, take care of the children. I remember her talking about that. There was some woman named Wilburn. I don't know her. Don't know if I ever got to know her, but I remember particularly her talking about some mother who was having a subsequent pregnancy of maybe 10 or 11 or 12, some great number, but she was having difficulty. And she would stay at the lady's house and organize things and make her household ready for when the lady went into labor.
Okay. So she left her home.
She left her home to stay at the mother's home.
Okay.
To make certain that she wasn't overworking. I guess what she wanted to do was to make sure that the pregnancy was as uncomplicated as she could make it, lessening the additional stresses of worried about how the laundry was going to get done, and which entailed pumping water, cutting wood. It was a hard chore. I remember how she used to recite poetry, Bible verses, and tongue twisters, riddles. She loved riddles. And we would be so fascinated trying to guess the answers to them.
Okay.
I remember her telling us this one about, oh, how did it go? As I was on my way to St. Ives, I met a man with 7 wives. Every wife had 7 sacks. Every sack had 7 cats. Every cat had 7 kids. Kids, cats, sacks, and wives. How many was going to St. Ives? So we would multiply and trying to find the answer to that. And everything we came up with, she'd say, no, that's not it. No, that's not it. But Grandma, she had 7 sacks and she had 7 cats in that sack, and every one of the cats had 7 cats. That's 7 times 7 times 7. They said, no, that's not it. And when we learned that, she said, as I was going to St. Ives. Who was going to St. Ives? How many is that? 1. She said, so how many was going? Oh, 1. And we would laugh, and then she'd come up with something else. So that really was our kindergarten. She was teaching us to be more critical with our thinking.
It sounds like that was very exciting. I was just imagining myself in such a situation. She should be with me now as I'm doing this interview. That is really wonderful, a remarkable story about your grandmother.
She was filled to the brim with stories.
Mm-hmm. Do you suppose that's a rub off on you at this time?
I think so, because I spent a lot of time with her, especially with the needlecraft part. I learned how to make all of these embroidery stitches by the time I was 6, or while I was 6. I didn't know the names of any of them. I still don't know the names of all of them, but I can make them, I can do them. I think I know chain stitch, because it looks like a chain when you do it, but the rest of them, I don't know the names of them. I just can't do them.
Okay.
I'm not even sure whether she told us the names of these stitches, but at the time, all young girls were taught how to do basic things with needles. We didn't go to home economics classes. We had our grandmother, in my case, my great-grandmother. I don't think my grandmother was proficient at those kinds of things. I don't think she had that interest, but my great-grandmother did. She could tell stories, as I said before, and I remember that so well. She could cook too. She loved cooking.
What were some of the things that she cooked that you liked?
I remember a basic pound cake. That's one of my favorite cakes to bake to this day.
The what kind?
A pound, just a
Okay.
basic pound. But she used to make something called butter roll. But I don't know what she did. I recall my mother making that too, but it seems like it was a crust with butter in the milk. Reminded you of cinnamon rolls, but it wasn't tight. I don't know how she did it, but I recall that was a fast
Fix.
that 6. If you needed to have something sweet, they didn't always say dessert. If you wanted to make something sweet right quick, this was a go-to recipe. But I don't recall what was put in. We just liked it.
Okay, very good.
When are you gonna make a nothing butter roll? And it was nothing. It was not a roll, but that's what it was
But
called.
it had lots of butter in it, whatever it was.
You could
with some dough.
you could see
some kind of
it,
dough.
right? There was a,
Seems
there
like
was a
I remember
crust.
my big mama had something like that too.
And did
It
she?
was light.
Yes.
And
Tasted really
delicious.
good. Yes.
Oh, this is very interesting. Well, tell me, in what community and or county did your great-grandmother live?
She lived in Coahoma County.
What is it called now?
Coahoma.
C-O-A-H.
Right.
O-M-A? That was Coahoma County?
Yes.
Okay.
People say Coahoma, but
Okay.
they skipped that A.
Okay.
But
Coahoma County.
it was really Coahoma, but she didn't say Coahoma. She said Coahoma.
Okay, was that county the same as Quitman, Mississippi?
Whitman is west of Coahoma.
Okay.
No, east of.
East of Coahoma.
Whitman County was east of Coahoma County. And Whitman was between Panola County and Coahoma.
Okay.
Modern folks say Batesville and Clarksdale. Her community was called Lula. Like Lula May, Lula.
L-U-L-A?
L-U-L-A was the
That
name.
was the name of her community?
The name of the community was Lula.
Okay.
It still exists as a sign on the highway. There are some houses there, but not a prominent community as it was then.
Okay.
And at one time she lived further west in Friars Point. But I know that she was in Lula for a long time because my grandfather was born in Lula and my mother was born in Lula.
Okay.
So I'm thinking that she probably spent the bulk of her life,
There.
especially if she were practicing midwifery, that it was in the Lula community of Coahoma County.
Okay. What was the community like?
From what I can remember, they're discussing the typical Mississippi deprived community, having to go to Clarksdale, the big town, when you needed to buy something important. Things that they didn't raise themselves, they would have to go into Clarksdale to get it.
Okay.
I don't recall how, well, we know that everyone raised cotton at that time.
What was that like?
Now I
The
remember
cotton fields.
the cotton fields as far as long as you could see. It was just cotton. Fields and rows of cotton. If not cotton, soybeans and corn. That was it. Cotton, soybeans and corn. No trees, just rows.
Did your grandmother, your great-grandmother pick cotton?
I'm sure she did, but she didn't have a mother to take care of, because that's what everyone did. They picked cotton. They were basically sharecroppers. I don't know what point they became landowners, but I do know that by the time it was my mother's era. My dad owned his own property, but during my great-grandmother's day, I think there were still sharecroppers in Oklahoma County. I don't know how many babies she delivered, so I can't guess how many times she left home to stay with the mothers who were expecting.
What was your great-grandmother's name?
Oh, my great-grandmother was named Sally Rose.
R-H-O-D-E-S.
R-H-O-D-E-S, absolutely. Sally Rose.
Okay. And of course, she was a member of the family. Approximately, do you know how old she was at the time that she was catching babies?
Okay, now she was born in 1859, and she died in 1950 at 91. So I'm thinking that she may have been in her 30s, maybe.
In her 30s?
I'm just supposing this, because when I knew her, of course, she was not practicing, and I was 11 when she died in 1950.
She was 50?
No, that's it. It was in 1950 when she died, and I was 11.
Okay.
And I don't remember her practicing at all. She was just my great-grandmother. So she had to have been delivering babies when she was much younger. So I'm just rounding it off as in her 30s.
Okay.
But you had to, yeah, but she had to have been in good enough health and young enough to walk the roads to the places where the mothers were, and to stay there with her to do things. And you can't wash and cut wood and take care of children, combing their hair and milking their cows or whatever, unless you were physically able.
Right. Well, now, you said you were 11
When she died.
when she died. And she died at what age?
She was 91.
Okay, she died at age 91. 1950 or 51?
1950.
1950, okay, at age 91. So reasoning that, about how old was she when you were 11? If she died at age 91, were you still with her when she died?
We lived with them during school. My dad had bought this house in Memphis for my grandparents, so that we could go to school in Memphis,
Okay.
rather than at the one-room schoolhouse in the neighborhood. And my great-grandmother lived with my grandfather. So she was like a lot of households.
Yes.
So she was a prominent body. My step-grandmother was there, who cooked, but I loved my great-grandmother, and she spent a lot of time showing me how to do stuff, and of course, telling the stories. So I spent a lot of time with her.
Okay. So now, you spent a lot of time with your great-grandmother, who was the midwife.
Who was the midwife.
You were 11
when she died.
When she died. And she was 91 when she died. You know that before you went to the home, she was midwife.
Oh yes, I heard my mother talk about
it.
The fact that she was a midwife.
So did your mother